issue about, dog meat eating culture, I think there's a tremendous misperception.
They need people to watch their programs. They want newsworthy articles.
Attention seeking.
Again, attention seeking. So international press has been keen to blow this into a really big issue.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Crossover. I'm Ji Xiaojun.
And I'm Yi Shu here in Beijing. So this is a show for animal lovers around the world.
You have a dog.
I do. I have a dog. She was my first baby.
That's
her. That's Kaya. And these are my second babies,
All
Mia
right.
and Noah. Yeah, so
She's
Kaya,
the first one.
She's the first one. I have 3 babies, and I treat her like a baby. On a serious note, Xiaojun, Mahatma Gandhi, he had a quote that said, "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way that it treats its animals."
Well, in that sense, we're going that direction.
We've done a show previously about wildlife conservation. So I think there is this momentum in China about awareness around animal welfare, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We are joined by Dr. Tony Beck and Mary Peng. Thank you so much for joining Crossover.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
So, I hear the term animal welfare and I hear the term animal rights. Is there a difference between the two?
I think there is, and what we're trying to move forward on now is to just basically understand animals need to be able to have food, clean water, they should not be abused. These are things that are basic to their welfare. Animal rights is more, should the animal be forced to do or not do certain things? What can we use the animals for? Can we use them for testing of drugs and cosmetics? These are part of the rights questions.
But when we talk about animal welfare, what kind of animals are we talking about?
The movement really is right now because the animals that are closest to us at home, our dogs and our cats and our pets, these are the animals that we usually refer to in terms of welfare issues, like how we're treating them. Should we be eating these types of animals like dogs and cats? But there's also a movement to provide for better welfare for farm animals, even humane slaughter of animals like cows, pigs, sheep, chickens. They also have feelings. They're sentient beings. When we do process them for food, these big agricultural industries that we have in every country, we do still have to consider them and the way that they are slaughtered, and that they're slaughtered humanely.
There's been a lot of focus in the media that there's been exposés on bear bile production for traditional Chinese medicine. There's been a lot of work being done around shark fin consumption. So this would follow the path, the category of animal rights, or?
I think there's 2 issues there. One is animal welfare and one is animal rights. On the one hand, if you are going to farm animals in the sense as for sort of a bile, then if you feel that you actually had to do it, then you would want to do it in a way that maintains the animal's welfare. From a different perspective, however, you'd be questioning from an animal rights perspective whether we should actually be doing it.
Right.
And so, there are different levels and understandings. Animal welfare as a concept, it can be quite personal to different people, and so people will apply it quite differently. But in situations where we're using animals for products that we may not actually need, then that is a direct contravention of their animal welfare and also their animal rights.
So, understandably, we now are talking about the issue of animal welfare, whereas China's awareness or understanding in this regard.
From my perspective, I would say that, as with most things, China is catching up really fast. The concept of animal welfare is a new concept. Even if we just, in the US, welfare and anti-cruelty laws were only introduced 50 years ago. China has started to embrace pets in their homes, in their beds, and now they're coming to understand very quickly that they need to be maintaining the welfare of both their pets, also their neighbors' pets, and also in the larger picture.
A similar actually practice has been suggested by the People's Congress members, and it's about anti-animal abuse.
Anti-cruelty.
Yeah, basically anti-abuse or even anti-cruelty. I mean, this will be the first step to just make sure that we're not actively abusing animals for no reason.
So China does not currently have an anti-cruelty law, but it sounds like it's being discussed.
We do not.
Right.
There has been a draft legislation which has been put forth. There has been a lot of tremendous groundswell and support of this, but the country has not actually passed this into law yet.
So this is a great segue into probably the biggest focus in the media and the international media here in China, and that always, it's a very sensitive topic, and it's about dog eating, right? Because obviously, there is a dog eating culture. It has a long history here in China, but it usually is with certain ethnic groups or certain geographic regions.
Yeah, in northeast China with the Korean ethnic groups.
You know about the history
and also
there.
in Guizhou, in some of the southern provinces and Guangxi.
There are pockets, in every country. Right, China is no different. There are subcultures or little groups of people that have very traditional culture. This is a very traditional food culture. It is not by any means mainstream. There have been very recent studies that were just presented at global conferences, animal welfare conferences in Washington recently, and the surveys from China that were several thousand consumers that were asked the question, have you ever consumed dog meat? And 70% of the Chinese respondents said no, we have never. And how many ever intended to consume dog meat? It was like over 60% of those respondents said we would never eat dog meat. That is just like anathema to our very being. So this whole issue about dog meat eating culture, I think there's a tremendous misperception that this is a food staple in China, that we're eating this every day, every meal. It really is not. Most Chinese people have not ever consumed dog meat.
And would you say that this has been perpetuated by media? I mean, media definitely plays a role in this, right?
I mean, I strongly agree with that statement. I mean, in the news, they need to sell papers. They need people to watch their programs. They want newsworthy articles.
Attention-seeking.
Attention-seeking. So international press has been keen to blow this into a really big issue that has been driven by well-meaning people who have tried to get on that bandwagon or highlight the issue.
We actually have read stories that say actually exactly the opposite of the accusation of people eating a lot of dog meat. Basically, there are animal lovers, enthusiasts. Once they got the information that there might be a car loaded with dogs, which they speculated might be sent to any slaughter farms or whatever, and they would just go out and they found the car and they stopped them and rescued.
I remember that,
all the dogs.
Hundreds of dogs, and
and sent them
and they actually stopped them on the freeway.
It happened for quite a few times.
It's happening. It's happening very regularly. I mean, we receive these reports all the time of these animals that are being transported to these slaughterhouses, and there is a tremendous, I think, backlash against this type of commerce, because this commercial trade, number one, is illegal. Right, that's what people need to understand, and it's really the Chinese citizens of this country that are going out there, that are looking for these trucks, that are sending out all the social media WeChats where you can get a lot of people to come over. They're beginning to consult with legal counsel. They're talking to lawyers to understand, how can you transport this truckload of dogs or this truckload of cats, and these are going to slaughterhouses, but what are the licensing, what are the licenses and the animal health certificates that you need in order to be able to transport these animals from province to province? There's all of these laws and regulations. China has very comprehensive food and public health, laws and regulations that serve to protect the people, protect consumers in food safety and what it is that we're consuming. So this entire trade and the demand, the few people, honestly, the few people that are demanding these types of food products from dogs and cats, they have to understand that you are consuming animals that are completely off the grid. You don't know their background, so it's possible they may have been killed
That's
with
right.
poison.
That's
they
right.
may have had
Right.
drugs in their previous lives or vaccine.
I mean, it sounds like there's this grassroots movement that's happening, to advocate animal welfare, which is maybe slowly creating that sort of sentiment that we're seeing in the People's Congress, starting to talk and discuss this
Absolutely.
issue.
I mean, this is how you affect change.
Right.
From grassroots up, starting with education in the schools,
Right.
people becoming pet lovers. This is the way. So the dog meat trade's going to fade away.
That's like
is
the
because-
generation
Exactly.
influence,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
because-
like your
we
children.
interviewed a few people just to hear what they think about this issue. Let's hear what they had to say.
我不反对吃狗肉，但是我本身是我自己也是不会吃的。
我反对的是说那个你用残忍的方式去杀死狗。
从我的角度出发的话，我是不支持吃狗肉的这种行为的。
吃狗肉不残忍，但是虐待动物、虐待狗的话非常残忍。
我会劝他，最好不要吃狗肉。
吃狗肉，它是每个人是他个人的权利，即使是这个是少数人的权利。当然，可能吃狗肉这个东西，它可能是涉及到就是说，狗是人的朋友，或者说是狗是已经就是不能是作为人的这个肉食来源，它的功能性变了，就是。你比如说，中国历史上它实际上有很悠久的吃狗肉的传统，但是从隋唐之后，中国人就很少吃狗肉了，因为狗肉已经不上台面了。就是说，上层人他已经开始不吃狗肉，包括到了可能就是说明朝、清朝这种，狗已经慢慢的作为就是作为贵族，你比如说慈禧老佛爷他是养狗的，那么就是狗它已经它功能性已经有一种就是帮助人或者说成为人的肉食。已经转变为人玩弄的，或者说是玩耍的一种陪伴人朝夕相处的一种宠物了。
I like the last one.
Yeah.
He was going back to Chinese history,
Right.
so we haven't been eating that much of dog meat since Sui and Tang Dynasty.
Right.
That's at least 1,000 years ago.
Yes, and then he says, but now dogs are our friends. They are
Companions,
pets.
yeah.
I've heard that phrase before. Dogs are friends, not food.
That's right, that's
and
right.
I'm hearing a lot more people say that as well.
And they are all young people.
Yeah.
Remember, not.
What struck me most, there was a young lady in there who said, I would counsel the people who are eating dog meat and urge them not to, eat dog meat, eat our friends. That young woman is representative of what is happening right now in our country, in China as a whole. Your children and all these children that are now growing up with pets in their household, a lot of them are only child, right? The only child. So this is a sibling, more so than, anything else in their lives. This is their direct companion. The thought of anyone eating someone in their life who is so close and so dear is just ridiculous. So we're banking on generational change. You might not be able to change all the older generation who still may have and cling to very traditional food cultures. But this generation that we're seeing now, all the kids born after 1980 and the future generations, they are not going to be dog or cat meat consumers. And they are also the future consumers who are going to support the corporations that are engaging in humane standards of agricultural production.
What you're saying, Mary, is that we kind of have to wait for this generational change for people to develop this compassion for animals, right? But what can we do in the meantime to accelerate this?
Well, I think I said within China, people can highlight those instances of abuse, take them to the local police force, publicize. We're not talking about dog meat, we're talking any cases of abuse that are seen.
Sure.
And they can push as firmly as they can, so the government is listening to the populace who are saying, we want change in this area, please. This is what we want. As I said, so I personally feel that this whole issue can get hijacked by the dog meat trade issue because, okay, I understand people, we love animals, we don't want people to be eating meat. However, on a broader picture, when we're considering all animals, those that are being farmed from those that are being running around the streets and then getting attacked with a man with a stick, these are the broader issues that we need to be addressing and trying to just gently raise the awareness of within China, not from out.
Another thing that I've seen is that, if you really want to help the people of China, the citizens here, when we see reports of a dog that was dragged, who hooked up to the back of the car by a rope, and the driver just dragged this, and hundreds of people came out.
Yeah.
The person that was driving the car with the dog was arrested, as were 4 people who intervened and I believe became very physical with the perpetrator.
Right.
So these are issues where you're starting to have, law-abiding, good people, regular citizens who are actually good Samaritans, but because there are no laws that will legislate and protect against these types of acts that are cruel and that there are penalties for this. So what happens when you have a gap and you have no laws that legislate against these behaviors, people have no choice. I think the people feel so desperate, the people that we speak with feel so desperate, they don't know what to do. And therefore, they're forced into a position of taking action in their own hands. And many of them, by doing so, are actually breaking laws of China. You cannot beat up these people. That is an assault. That's a felony crime. You can't do that. So if we value social stability, if we value a harmonious nation, a harmonious society, we need to be able to listen to our citizens and understand why they feel so pained, why they feel so desperate, that many of them are willing to risk jail and a criminal record, and their whole lives are going to be turned upside down because they're trying to do something where our laws fall short. So it has to be, we have to listen to the people. We have to do this from within. But I think our nation's leaders, it behooves them to really understand that humane animal welfare laws is also very good for maintaining social stability.
Right, and creating morality within a community and a society. I mean, it's about creating compassion not only for humans but for all living things, right? And Mary, you mentioned earlier that a lot of this has to, and it starts with pet ownership.
It does.
So when we come back from the short break, we're going to talk about responsible pet ownership. Please stay tuned. In the meantime, please take a look at these links.
I work 12 hours a day.
A golden fish.
Absolutely.
I just kind of like the way that she looks. So we said we're going to go get a Shiba Inu. We had lived in Japan. We loved the look. I had no idea what type of dog I was getting myself into.
Welcome back to Crossover, and today we'll be talking about the animal welfare issue in China. Now, compared to dog eating, I guess a bigger issue, bigger problem that is existing, a lot of people are not discussing, is the abandoning of dogs, of cats or dogs. And I guess lots of people, they love animals, but at the same time, for some specific reasons, they wouldn't be able to carry on, raising their pets, and then what do they do? They can't really find someone. There is maybe no shelter they can reach, and then the simple solution would be, okay, out.
You just throw them out. Yeah, it's I guess just kind of segueing onto that. I think growing up in the West, you kind of know what a commitment means when you decide to take on a pet. You know that a dog is going to live for 15 years, and you need to make a commitment to the dog for 15 years.
That's right.
How do you evaluate the understanding? Because pet ownership is relatively new here in China. How do Chinese people understand this level of commitment?
It's developing. There is a way to go. I mean, but the same can be said in all countries. Before you get a pet, you want to be talking to your vet or people who are experienced pet owners and asking them.
Do your research.
Asking them, what pet should I have?
Right.
I work 12 hours a day.
A golden fish.
Absolutely. I mean, this is where it needs to start, and this is the way the
that will be your chosen pet.
Not a dog or a turtle.
I'm not much of a fish vet, so but yeah, getting them to get the right dog for their lifestyle, right cat for their lifestyle. This is where it's got to start. And yes,
that is dog and cats we're talking about, right? I mean, basically they need your care
and I have
attention.
To say, when I got my lovely Kaya, who is 10 and a half years old, and she's an amazing dog now, but that first few months, she was. I just kind of liked the way that she looked, so we said we're going to go get a Shiba Inu. We had lived in Japan. We loved the look. I had no idea what type of dog I was getting myself into. And then after we brought her home, we looked on the web and it was talking about this character, this very mischievous type of dog that gets into everything. And I remember looking at my husband and saying, did we make a wrong choice? But it was too late. We already loved her, she was there. And so we got through it. And
you didn't send her away while you were pregnant, right?
No, we did not. But yeah, I mean, we didn't do our research, and I, give everybody some advice, do your research.
It's the right bet and you bet on it. You won it.
I got lucky.
But
yeah.
That's a major issue.
That is a major issue. And, we talked about 20 years ago, what was that like? So when this whole dog and cat industry and people were starting to be interested in dogs and cats, one of the first things that people became infatuated with was the different types of breeds. Because before, the two traditional indigenous dogs in China are the Pekingese and the Chow Chow. Okay, and there are plenty of them. But then you start to see online and the internet open up this whole world of Dalmatians and Huskies and Golden Retrievers and Rottweilers and Dobermans and Border Collies. And then bearing witness over the past almost 3 decades of what Chinese society has gone through, I've seen all the fads. It started with the German Shepherd, then there was the Golden Retriever, and then Border Collies have become very, very popular, and now we're getting these Labradoodle and crossbreeds. So, people here, like your own family, EE, we didn't have the information, and please remember, a lot of this breed-specific information that you can just get online and find out in English language was not available in Chinese.
Right.
So people were just buying these animals because they look cute, and they thought, wow, I would really love to have a husky. They lived in a 70 square meter studio apartment, and they would get 2 huskies.
So you're saying this is one of the reasons why people are now abandoning
lack of information.
Once they discovered that having is not the same as wanting, right?
That's an excellent point.
And then you begin to understand, wow, the photo looks so cute. It's such a cute little puppy.
And all puppies are cute.
And every single puppy kitten is adorable. And then once it grows into a 45-kilo large animal, and you're working 14 hours a day outside the home, you do not have time.
Your shoes
That's right, and
your
you don't have
carpets
time to take care of them and walk them and give them the exercise. These animals start to go stir crazy, and they can become destructive. And that was why so many of the shelters that we saw in China had unbelievable, purebred dogs. You had greyhounds, you had golden retriever, you had collies, you had very expensive breeds that people bought. And then once they realized what it took to be able to commit to having these pets, they were like, this is too much. I did not sign up for this. I did not know what I was getting into.
So what does it take to be a responsible pet owner?
You need, obviously, with
research,
we research, so we know that we need to choose the right pet. Then
what is right?
Well, as I said, it all just depends on what lifestyle you're...
Fits your lifestyle.
That fits your lifestyle.
Or it really fits on...
Yeah, I mean...
On the size of your house, how big it is.
It wouldn't be a prudent thing to change your lifestyle based on the breed that you want.
Well, some people might be that passionate about their choice. Most of us don't have that luxury.
And you're working hours,
And yes, you can always talk to, and if you don't know exactly the sort of the type of dog that you want, then go and discuss it with your vet. They'll happily sit down for 10 minutes and say, okay, well, this is what you do. Do you really want to, this is the choice that you should be making. If you have a dog, then you need to budget going forward as to the running costs of that dog, be it registration, vaccination, neutering, food, possibly put a bit of money aside for those unfortunate medical crises. So you have to understand that you have to invest money and time into that dog.
So in this regard, China is still pretty new. Business is still new.
But it's developing.
It's developing.
It's getting better.
And breeding. That's a big business, right, in China.
Industry. Yeah, this is actually where it gets problematic, because in this country, there is no such thing as a breeder license. We don't have an official or even a professional association. In other countries, you have like the American Kennel Association, the Westminster, Kennel Association. You have all of these professional bodies where they work to be able to cultivate breeders that are ethical, that follow their practices, that are held legally accountable. You know, it's very difficult to get one of these breeder designations.
No
in
individuals
these countries,
allowed.
Right. Well, you are allowed, but the requirements are rigorous, and you have to pay fees to these professional bodies. In China, anybody can be a breeder. Any one of us can get two animals, a male and female. We can breed them, we can have a litter. I can create a website, I can create a WeChat shop, I can become a breeder. But I have no qualifications and no training and probably no understanding about the breeds.
And here's the thing, because I've heard from many of my colleagues and friends that they've often gone to these pet markets.
Oh, yeah.
And they
That's
bought
huge.
a dog, but very soon afterwards the dog falls sick.
It's a week-long
It
dog.
seems like it's a regular sort of experience. What's happening there?
That's scary. So these dogs, we actually have a name for them in Chinese. There has been a term coined called a week-long dog. And this is very, very well known in the veterinary profession, that these animals are bred in such poor conditions, and they are taken away and sold from their mothers at 3 weeks. And what happens is that when you bring these animals into your home, the first few days they may be okay, and then with the change of environment and stress to the little animal system, and none of them have been vaccinated properly, they become sick very quickly. 70% of the animals that are bred by the animal trade industry for sale, for retail sale, do not actually make it to market. Those 70% of animals are what you don't see behind the scenes. They die, they are abandoned, or when they become very sick, and then the breeders have to start spending a lot of money at animal hospitals to treat them. That will not happen. They're not going to spend the money because it erodes their profit margin,
business,
right?
yeah.
So they'll sell them to
Absolutely.
slaughterhouses for salvage value.
I mean, my experience is the third morning, the morning of the third day. I've had friends just like you, and it's heart-wrenching when they have kids. You know, it's obviously, but they bring back this nice, cute puppy. But on the morning of the third day, the puppy comes into the hospital, and unfortunately, 50, 60, 70%, the puppy does not leave again.
So where should people go to find their pets?
Adoption.
Adoption is the best option,
Yeah, there's an adoption, a huge adoption movement, adoption industry. We don't have a habit of adopting because a lot of people don't know. In this country, it's still such a new market, new economy. And when we want something, if I need a new jacket, if I need a car, if I need a new shoes, if I need whatever, we buy, right? Adoption is a very new mentality, really, really new. And it's going to take some time for the population to understand that this is the way to go. When you adopt, you save two dogs. The dog that's there in the shelter that is available for adoption. And then when you take that dog out of the shelter or away from the rescuer or the foster family or the animal hospital, right? You free up the space and there's a second dog that can then be given an opportunity just like that dog that was adopted. So you save two lives when you adopt. The adoption animals that I think we've seen for the most part are surprisingly healthy. You know, it's the purchase animals that are so sick, and they usually don't make it if they're very small and in poor health.
So sturdiest dogs are actually mutts. They're not the purebred, right, in terms of health.
Absolutely. I mean, your Heinz 57, your crossbreed, your mongrel is going to have a lot less medical issues than a breed. Okay, especially, which is why we love adoption so much, is especially in mainland China. And the advantages being, yes, they've already got a good immune system, so then they're going to be sort of, they're not going to get distemper or parvovirus or any of these infectious diseases. They've got a good immune system.
It's like multiracial couples.
And they're well socialized.
Right.
They're usually well socialized, etc. But going back to the breed abnormalities you can get, in China, they are rife. I mean, the cases of hip dysplasia that we've seen, where we've got dogs where a ball and hip and the leg is floating in the air practically, just attached to the body by muscle.
Because of overbreeding.
Because of overbreeding, because the conformation of that hip is so poor. Going forward, many dogs are going to require
So
hip
talking about
replacements.
breeding, what about spaying and neutering? Is that part of being a responsible pet owner?
Yes.
Because I think a lot of Chinese owners now, they kind of like the idea of having a pet and then maybe breeding them and having little puppies and giving them to their families and friends,
What
right?
they're saying is to make their life full.
Yeah.
Yes. But they make the shelters full too. Okay.
But you know what? Because I've talked to thousands of people over the years, because this is one of the burning questions to me. Like, why is spay-neutering so unpopular? You know, really, less than 5% of the dogs.
Is it too cruel for them?
Well, it is considered cruelty. I've asked literally thousands of pet owners about their opinions about spay-neuter. The majority of the families do respond that we think it's cruel. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of education.
Yeah, I would like to raise another issue. I mean, lots of communities, they have maybe not abandoned, or abandoned dogs and cats living in the outside. Well, they've been taken care of by the residents in that community. They've been fed, actually, by the residents in that community with proper foods. So what do we do with them?
You do something called trap, neuter, and return. You trap them with humane traps specifically designed to catch these cats in the courtyard.
Send them away.
No, don't send them away. Bring them to the animal hospital. We will spay, neuter, rabies vaccinate, ear tip them so that they're marked as having been spayed or neutered. And then the key is in the word return. A lot of times people say release, but release sort of like I can let them go to a park. I can take them many, many kilometers away. You have to bring them back to where the animals are originally from. These cats, these animals are very territorial. They will go back and they will keep the other new cats away from their territory. So over time, if more and more residential compounds, more and more communities start doing trap, neuter, return, you'll start to see that area have a very stable population of these animals. That's right, and they no longer produce. There's less howling, less screaming, less all of these what we call quality of life issues that are very disruptive.
In general, it sounds like a good idea. Why isn't it happening?
It's a fantastic idea.
There's no awareness out there to do this, or
I think the first point is that Mary focuses on different compounds and different specific locations where the management don't have a cull policy. The problem is that if you're in any country, and I've worked with charities in the rest of Asia, where if there isn't a no cull policy, then if you do TNR, the issue is that you can spend a lot of time neutering these animals, and then the government decides to cull one day, okay? And so to make it sustainable, you need to make sure, just like Mary does, is make sure that in the different places that you do it, the management is on board.
Who should be doing this?
Well, around the world, it works best when it's done by volunteers, people that live in the community. If you wait for the government, we will never have enough resources, we'll never have enough funding, we'll never have enough manpower to be able to go and take care of all these programs. It's got to come from the community. So the win-win-win situation between like the pro-animal people, the people who want to feed, the people who don't want the cats there, who don't want to feed, and the management association is to really do TNR, because it immediately alleviates the howling, the screaming, the hissing, the cat fights, the reproduction, and the community goes back to peace.
It's a long-term solution to the problem.
And it is the only humane solution that we have.
When we come back, we're going to be joined by one other guest to talk about her case study. Please join us.
My mother used to fear animals, but after we had a dog at home, they fall in love with each other.
What could be done, from, say, the government's perspective, from the, the social perspective? What should be done to change that, make it even better? And welcome back to Crossover in the studio. We're now joined by a new guest, Jerry.
Jerry,
welcome.
Thank you.
So you have an animal rescue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your program?
Actually, I started to rescue stray animals since 2002. Up to now, I rescued 87 dogs and 8 cats. When I found an animal in the street, I usually foster them in pet store or hospital and get them ready for
and find a foster.
Yeah.
So this isn't your job. This is almost a hobby for you.
Yes.
And you've rescued almost 90 dogs over over a decade. Can you still remember that first dog that you rescued and how it all started?
Yes. I remember. It was 4 puppies. they were very, very sick. You can see they are dying, and they were abandoned by a puppy dealer. One of them didn't make it, but the other 3 puppies, they survived, and I rehomed them. It was in 2002, and just a month ago, I heard from their family that they passed away.
Oh.
That's 12 years.
12 years, yes. Right.
Even more. I think they are successful puppies.
Yes.
Right.
So 2002, that's 14 years.
14 years.
14
right.
years. You said you have a job and this is only doing it, you're doing it a part-time.
Yeah.
Do you have a community or a network of people like yourself?
Actually, I work alone, but I have these old friends. We all love animals, and they also rescue animals, and sometimes we help each other. Yes.
What do you think?
I think what a lot of people are starting to understand is that there is a lot that you can do as an individual. Jerry is proof of one person who has saved over, 93 animals, and all by herself. Now, we're seeing a lot more people do this now.
And that means there's a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely wonderful work. Thank you for doing it. I mean, and there are many people doing the same. Okay, and again, it will help drive education, change behavior amongst the people that they network with and are rehoming to. Again, it is part of that grassroots movement. We were talking about helping to raise the issues of pet ownership and welfare.
And I think there needs to be possibly a lot of education around stray pets, and that these stray pets actually have a great capacity to love. Absolutely. Right? We have a video clip of a man called Wuchi who is doing a stray pet transformation program where he's actually using the pets for therapy. Let's take a look.
我们现在就是除了做一些传统的宠物的训练之外呢，还做动物辅助治疗自闭症儿童的这个工作。我有一个节目，就是播出之后。有一个家长呢，就是通过电视台联系到我，他说，吴老师，你的狗狗训练得很听话，我家的孩子特别喜欢狗，能不能告诉我，就是让我家的孩子能够去跟他去接触一下。后来我就是跟家长去做交流，我第一次知道，就是说原来还有自闭症，就这样的一个疾病，它会严重的困扰孩子跟人的这种交际能力以及学习能力，但他们可能会对小动物特别有兴趣。所以我们想，如果说我们对于小动物的这种训练能力比较好，可以利用小动物作为一种媒介，来帮助孩子进行读听写功能的一个完善。其实我们除了在这个康复机构设立专门的动物辅助治疗课程之外呢，我们现在还实行了一个计划，就是让我们经过一定阶段训练的狗狗呢，先进入到一些家庭当中，让他们更好的融入到这个家庭生活。当然，因为这个毕竟是对家庭当中会有一定的负担产生，所以也有一些厂商呢，他们了解到我们这个信息之后，就在中国现在有很多以宠物的食品进出口加工为主的这些企业，现在他们也是给我们提供了一些帮助。其实，因为确实是我们在这个过程当中要投入非常多的时间跟精力，因为毕竟我们这类医疗服务权都是免费送给家庭，以及免费进入到这个机构当中来的，所以他们有的时候也要承载着非常多的这种负担。那我相信，其实只要有这么一个好的开始，以后会越来越好的。
The message is more and more organizations are now ready and willing to get involved in this new industry or new cause. Let's put it this way. What about you? I mean, Jerry, when you do this, say this is an individual effort, it's a personal interest. What about your family? I mean, your parents, do they complain or do they support you?
My mother used to fear animals, but after we had a dog at home, they fall in love with each other.
Mary, I know you have an adoption program.
Yes.
How have you seen adoption, like the numbers, grow over the years?
It's just skyrocketing.
Really?
It started out with us trying to find families for these beautiful, little puppies, little kittens who are actually healthy. Right. And it took a long time to find families to, come for adoption, to consider adoption, because it was so easy to buy these animals. After a certain number of years have gone by, and I think collectively as a society, we now have the experience of, animals that weren't healthy from the markets, these week-long dogs that die within a week of being purchased. there's enough collective knowledge and experience now so that people are looking for other alternatives to the purchase markets. So the adoption programs, we recently had a little kitten, and we had some fabulous photos on our website. And this little kitten's adoption ad, when we released it, 2 hours later, we had a waiting list of 25 families who were trying to adopt this one kitten.
Wow.
Granted, the photographs were fabulous, but
that's important. A very good point.
But I was stunned.
Wow.
I never had such huge demand. And then, so what happens is that, okay, so one lucky family will be able to adopt this beautiful kitten. And then I have 24 other families that I know that are looking for adoption animals.
On the wait list.
Yes, and so now all the other animals, we're sending out emails like crazy and WeChats like crazy. Like, okay, so this kitten's been adopted, but look at all these other cats and kittens.
And then you're an entrepreneur.
And
just
all
look
of
at
these
that.
other animals are getting adopted. So we're so happy.
You're doing great. You've got the attention. You've got the long list of subscribers. What should be done? What could be done, from, say, the government's perspective, from the, the social perspective? What should be done to change that, make it even better, say, in the future?
I mean, it's always going to require financial support. If we can get the dog population under control by education, neutering, registration, then you're going to have a lot less stray animals on the streets. That is a massive task in China. Recent initiatives that have been discussed include widespread microchipping. Widespread microchipping will drive ownership or responsible ownership. So that's how you reduce demand for shelter places. If we're on across mainland China, if you're going to make a massive change, then funding is the issue.
We started the program talking a bit about media and how media has played a role in creating a lot of the misperceptions around, pet ownership and treatment of animals here in China. So, what can, us being members in the media, like, what can media do? What sort of role, in terms of educating and outreach?
Do a program like this.
Yes, do more programs, like this, right? Do what you're doing, keep it up, and also encourage. If more people who are, in the media like yourselves, who people know, trust, you're almost like members of family. Like, I watch your show every week. I've been watching it for years. I feel like I know you, very close to me, and I trust you. So if you were encourage people to please, responsible pet ownership, adopt, don't shop. Please vaccinate your dogs every year. It's the law, but it's also responsible pet ownership. Spay, neuter your pets. If you want to find out about where you can go for adoption, Adoptable Pets program, contact any one of us. We're here all the time. That, I think, would really help alleviate this lack of information about where to go. People are very, very, very hesitant to adopt these street animals, stray animals. They don't have a pedigree, they don't have a background, we don't know anything about their health history. So you are taking a gamble. But if it's been seen by a veterinarian and it's got a vaccination certificate, right, from a legally registered animal vaccination hospital, that goes so far, it goes really, really far to making the families feel comfortable. So we all have these programs, we all work with these shelters. If you want to adopt a pet, by all means, contact us. There's lots of NGOs, lots of animal welfare organizations that are legally registered here. We're all happy to help. I still think that word is not out about where to go and who you can trust. So that will take away a lot of the fear in terms of like taking that first step and what we say sort of like, take the risk.
Do you want us to print out the address and the contact details on the screen?
Yes, please. That would be wonderful.
Adopt.
Please adopt.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
please
from
adopt.
the government side, the social perspective, and also from the media perspective, what about you, Jerry? What kind of support do you want?
I think people need more knowledge about animal behavior. There's still a lot of people think that street dogs can be trained, can never be housebroken. In this morning, before I came here, my neighbors They know me for years, and they see me working with my rescue dogs for years. They still think they can't be street dogs. I heard them whispering to each other that, are these street dogs?
Right.
Can't be. I
Yeah.
think they are family pets. But I told them that they can be trained, they can be very sweet.
Right.
And they probably have more motivation to be sweet because they want to be adopted into a forever home. I want to thank the three of you so much for being here today.
Thank you for your time, for your stories. Thank you.
And thanks to your viewers at home for tuning in. We'll see you next weekend on Crossover. Bye for now.
Goodbye.